Welcome to the Point of View NFL Draft Special. At least we know that one league can get things right. They have a perfect format and something that stayed for years and that we all get excited over, unlike England and Spain and Italy, just to name a few. Actually, just them. But yeah, anyway, we're here for the NFL draft. It's your final mock draft. I'm just hosting
3.0
before the draft starts on Thursday.
Yeah.
Are you excited for this year's draft?
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. This year's draft, I think, is a little different than the past, where we know who's going number one. The rest of the draft, including the quarterbacks, there is a sense of who the first two picks will be, but as far as the whole thing, we don't know where a lot of these guys are going to land. There's usually that number one pick, and then there's usually a few picks that you kind of know what's happening. With this year, especially with the quarterbacks, these guys could go outside of the top guy. They could go in any order to any team, and it's just going to be interesting to see. And some of the stuff is like what I would have done, but also I'm thinking about what I think that's going to happen as well. So it's kind of a mix of both.
All right, so let's start with the obvious. Who's going number one?
So the first pick of the 2021 NFL draft is the Jacksonville Jaguars select Trevor Lawrence. I don't need to explain too much. He's the best quarterback to enter the league since Andrew Luck. He would have been the number one pick as a freshman. He's got everything. Urban Meyer didn't come out of retirement to draft anybody else. So as of right now, I think he kind of knows he's a Jacksonville Jaguar because there's no way he's getting passed up. No one's making any trades. He's going to try to change a losing franchise. And if there's one guy that's capable to do it, especially with Lawrence, and then you have Urban Meyer, who may not be the greatest NFL coach in terms of what we know about him, but those two can do something special together.
All right, so simple enough. Pick number two, the Jets, Jets.
So I wouldn't do this, but I know they're going to. The New York Jets with the Sam Darnold off the books, that they're going to draft a quarterback, because why else would they do that? They're going to go with the BYU quarterback, Zac Wilson. On tape, he looks really phenomenal. He's only started really one full year, which is a little concerning to me. I think he's got capabilities of being something special, but I just don't know a lot with with him and what he's going to do, because I've only seen him for a year. But I think the Jets are pretty much locked in with him at number two.
Who would you rather take?
I would take Justin Fields at number two.
All right. And I assume a lot of people assume that he'd be going at number three, but with the trade that the 49ers made, I don't think it's going to happen.
That's a logical, honestly, that's the logical choice. When you trade up to get a quarterback like that, you don't trade up to who they're actually going to take. And I believe they're going to take Mac Jones. Do I think they should? Absolutely not. I think that would be a really risky pick, especially having to trade up. And where the 49ers were sitting, it's possible Mac Jones could have slid down to 12 or wherever they were. So I don't think this is a good idea, but I do think that Mac Jones is going to be the third quarterback off the board. Mac Jones has the capabilities of becoming something interesting, but at the same time, he's only played for 1 year, and he's only had the best weapons, across the board in college football. And then you think about all the Alabama quarterbacks that have come in the league and not look good. Tua, we thought was going to be that outlier. He is not looking good. And other than that, you have to go really deep back into history to see an Alabama quarterback that actually came into something. So this is
name it Ken Stabler.
Yeah. So this is a massive risk, but he just fits what I think Kyle Shanahan wants to do. And based on the quarterbacks he's played with before, I think this is what he will do. But honestly, I don't think this is a great idea, but I think it will happen this way.
So before we go on to number four, obviously the top three picks are the most coveted. Out of these three, who has the biggest chance of being a bust?
Mac Jones. I think Mac Jones can be something, but I don't like him as the problem with this is he should not go to become the starter from day one. They should let Jimmy do his thing for at least a year. But I think they're going to rush him into the spot, especially trading up and being the number 1-3 pick. Zac Wilson, I don't think will be a bust because I think his arm talent is exceptional, but he's not. I don't think he's going to be a superstar. at worst, he'll be like a Baker Mayfield. So I think he'll be a good starter for the Jets, and it just depends on what the Jets will surround him with. But I think Mac Jones is probably not going to bust. There's a possibility of it, but considering his arm strength and his physical gifts, I think it's unlikely that he will. But I wouldn't. But it's still possible. But out of the three, I think Mac Jones is the clear, because it just looks strange with him at number 3 to begin with. So for the number 3 pick, I think Mac Jones is the best. I mean, he's most likely to bust because he's only played with superstars. We have never seen him in a bad situation. San Francisco's good, but they don't have the type of weapons in comparison to what Alabama had because he's going to have several teammates drafted in the top 10, top 15 picks here. So you look at everything that he has had and he had the greatest college coach ever. So I just don't know if he can actually do this in a toxic or an unpleasant situation. Now, if he was the second quarterback taken, if he's taken 2, I think he would be a bust out of the gate because of the lack of for options. But at number 3, because he has Kyle Shanahan and a decent team, he has the possibility of being something. But I don't know if he's going to be a bust. But I think it is possible considering his past history.
All right, what if Jimmy Garoppolo goes back to his 2019 form, which is possible, not likely? Then what do you do if you're San Francisco?
Then it's difficult because you just traded up to draft this guy. I really do think that, and I don't know, they'd probably trade him because you can't take the number 3 overall pick in the draft, him sitting on the bench for 3, 4, 5 years. Now, if they had an established starters like Aaron Rodgers or like a Tom Brady or like a Drew Brees in the past with an all-pro, all Hall of Fame quarterback there, then you can just sit and relax. But with the situation, I think they would be forced to trade him. I think the perfect spot for Mac Jones would be the Saints. But at the same time, I think he's going to be picked really high. He shouldn't be. With Shanahan, I give him a shot. But there's a lot of questions I have about him in general. If you look at his film, if you grab him in the 2nd or 3rd round, it would be a huge steal. But at this spot, it's just you're giving up all this ammo to move up to get Mac Jones. And Mac Jones could be something, but I think he's not someone who's going to be ready to start from the jump. And again, I don't think this isn't like a Mitch Trubisky bad because he was on the radar for him being drafted there. But as far as him as a prospect, all of his touchdown passes, his receivers are open by 5 yards. He has the arm strength, but again, he's not being tightly covered. So I don't know if he can do this with wide receivers who are going to be covered much more tightly than it was at Alabama.
All right, so with number 4 team with not so great drafting history, the Atlanta Falcons.
So we're approaching our first trade of this draft. The Atlanta Falcons are going to move down to 9. Denver is going to move up to number 4. So with the 4th pick of my mock draft, the Denver Broncos are going to select Justin Fields, quarterback from Ohio State University.
Wow.
They take advantage of San Francisco's mistake. If this doesn't happen, I still think they trade up and they would take I think Denver would take Trey Lance if said situation doesn't happen. But under this structure, they basically take advantage of the mistake that San Francisco makes and the Jets make, because I think Justin Fields should be the number 2 pick. But the Jets seem sold on Zac Wilson, so I think that's pretty much done. Number 3 is a big question mark, but I do think they're going to favor Mac Jones based on his skill set, and all that. But for Denver, Drew Lock has just not been good enough. He showed flashes that first year, but then the last year he doesn't have what it takes to do it. And obviously Justin Fields goes there, and I'm guessing he'd be the starter from the jump, because I think they're kind of done with Drew Lock, and Drew Lock might be moved at some point in this draft. I don't know where to or how that would work, and it wouldn't be in the first round. But if they get Justin Fields, I certainly think that Drew Lock is moved elsewhere.
All right, so with the 5th pick, and you got to do something on offense, especially the line. The Bengals select
So this is difficult. This was really difficult. So there's the three names that I thought of for this is Jarmar Chase, wide receiver LSU, Kyle Pitts, tight end of Florida, and Penill, offensive tackle from Oregon. And I thought about this long and hard. And as you know, last time I had them taking the offensive lineman, I had to go in a different direction only because I took a look at that. I looked at my notes for not just the first round, but for the second and third round. There's a lot of good offensive tackle that they can find at, in the second and third round that will give them first round production potentially. So It really comes down to Jarmar Chase and Joe Burrow, Jarmar Chase teammates. It made sense that that's the pick. But I just, with Kyle Pitts, he's one of the best tight end prospects to enter the draft, maybe ever. You can go way back and maybe look at someone but on tape, he's just an animal. So I think Cincy, as much as they want to give Burrow his teammate back, they have decent wide receivers, and I think a tight end is like a quarterback's best friend. And yes, he needs to be protected, but they can get that protection in the second and third round. And if they wanted to move back in the first round and get somebody else who may drop or something, that's an option for them too. But at 5, I think it is a difficult one because Jarmar Chase is very compelling. And whoever doesn't, it's basically whoever Cincy takes, Miami's taking the other one. So I think Kyle Pitts for Florida, I think is a home run. As far as outside of Trevor Lawrence, this might be the second best player in this draft, at least on offense. I think Kyle Pitts is going to be a monster. He reminds me a little bit of the guy you have over there in Kansas City, except coming out of college, he was much more of an explosive athlete. And yeah, the numbers are the numbers. I don't really care about the numbers. Based on his build and based on what the type of athlete he is, you basically can throw it up there and he'll get down for you. So it's a difficult one, but I think you go with the tight end in this situation.
All right. So I really like this pick, and I'm also happy we'll get to the guy I'm happy that I don't think is a top 10 pick because you haven't said him yet. But anyway, the Dolphins at number 6.
Well, like I said, one was going to get Jarmar Chase, the other was going to get Kyle Pitts. So Miami, again, you look with Miami, you think about Trey Lance, you think about it, but again, it's kind of the same thing with the quarterback in Philly with Jalen Hurts. You got to give the guy a chance. And yes, he wasn't great last year, but Jarmar Chase looks like an NFL wide receiver already. If you give him Jarmar Chase and he can't do it, then you draft a quarterback next year. Next year's quarterback class isn't very good, but you can move on after this year. But considering Tua hasn't even played a full 16-game season, you got to give him the best weapon on the board. I'm pretty sure Miami would have preferred Kyle Pitts, but since he taking him off the board, Miami's it just feels like that makes the most sense because if you don't take Jarmar Chase, you're going to be overdrafting anybody else you put in that spot. Maybe you think about Trey Lance, but I just don't think you do it at this stage.
All right. So the one player I thought you were going to say, I don't have a first round grade on him, but I know you don't either. I'm almost shocked you didn't say Devontae Smith, though, to reunite him with his college teammate.
No, people are going to be mad of how deep down in this draft that I have him. Wait, where do I have him? I'm not going to say yeah. Okay. All right.
You're not the only one because every time I turn on sports talk radio or anything or listen to Mel Kiper or something, and by the way, he knows almost nothing. I mean, we make fun of him all the time, but that being said, yeah, he keeps dropping down and down and down because of the size, which I don't like because Julian Edelman just retired and he proved that size doesn't matter, but still.
Yeah, but considering the other receivers in this draft, like with all due respect, he's an amazing player, but he is significantly the third best receiver in this draft. Jaylen Waddle's better, and so is Jarmar Chase. If you're Miami, I might even consider Waddle because Jarmar Chase looks like an NFL receiver. I think in terms of ability, in terms of complete package, I think Jaylen Waddle has everything. But I think Devontae Smith is gonna drop, and maybe there's an opportunity for certain teams to go get him in the later rounds. Because obviously there's a few teams with multiple picks. So you can, if you're in this situation, Miami, you can look at it in this way, but there's also, a lot of different things contribute into this, but Ja'Marr Chase is just I don't think you can take the receiver from Devontae Smith at this stage because it's just too high. It'll be a huge overdraft. You know what I mean?
Yeah. All right. So the 7th pick, the Lions.
Okay, you're gonna think I'm crazy on this one. I had the Lions taking Trey Lance, quarterback from North Dakota State. Wow. I understand that they just traded for Jared Goff, but I don't know. It's unclear whether Jared Goff is going to turn into the Jared Goff that took the Rams to the Super Bowl, right? And I think at this stage you got to sit there and you just have to think about it. You're in a division, at least for the time being, with Aaron Rodgers. You obviously but there's not a lot of other big quarterbacks in this division as it stands. Kirk Cousins. If you have a quarterback that can win you games, I think you ultimately you have to make this decision. And I think if he falls, because I would define this as dropping slightly, because I think most people think Atlanta's taking him at 4, but sure. I have Denver making the trade and putting him up there. So it takes a lot of teams out of contention to drafting him. And even though Detroit may not need a quarterback, I don't think they're in love with Jared Goff. So that's why they make that decision. So he's going to be in the division with my Vikings and the Packers and the Bears, who obviously would also hope that a guy like Trey Lance falls. I don't think he plays next year. I think you sit him for a year because North Dakota State may not have played against the tough competition, but in terms of ability, in terms of what you see on film, he's got everything capable to be. I think there's a good possibility he's the second quarterback, but he's second best quarterback in this draft. I'm a little back and forth between Justin Fields and Trey Lance. On my quarterback rankings, I had Trey Lance at number 2, but just by a smith. But yeah, with Detroit, Matt Stafford's gone. You're taking that Jared Goff contract, but I don't think there was not this sense of like excitement about Jared Goff. You basically, it was like, remember when the Westbrook was traded for John Wall in the NBA?
Sure.
The trade seemed like the same. I think the Rams won the trade, but they're very similar in terms of their value. And obviously there's a lot of different things going on. And again, I just think when you have a quarterback like Trey Lance, if Jared Goff flames out and isn't good next year, the quarterback draft class of next year is not very good. So you look at this draft and you say, you just take the risk with Lance. If Jared Goff is in his feelings about it, oh, well, that's just how it goes. But I think you have to take him here if he drops to 7, because there's a high possibility he will not drop to 7, because I think Atlanta will think about it. But ultimately, I think someone will trade up with Atlanta because they need more than just a couple things.
All right. Carolina has a new quarterback.
Yep.
And to be fair, this is the prove it year, because I think Darnold's going to do a lot better than people think. I'm not saying they're a playoff team, but I think he can easily lead them to 8 wins. So what pick do they make at the 8th spot to help them start transitioning to a playoff team?
Okay, so this, and I'd have to gauge my whole list here. I think this might be the steal of the draft. And obviously, at this point in the draft, you have to draft the best possible guy on the board. And the best guy on the board in this draft is Penill Sewell. If you just were going to make a list of the best prospects in this draft, he's probably in the top 3. So I'd go Trevor Lawrence. I would go Penill Sewell and Kyle Pitts, not in that order necessarily. And then you have like Micha Parsons, which is another. But that is like, he's not projected, but his value is a 3rd pick of this draft. But obviously because of positions, he's not going there. He's sliding all the way down to Carolina. You have a new quarterback. And the problem in New York was Adam Gase, obviously. His team was not very good. But it was also like he wasn't protected very well. And this is, when you just look at Penill Sewell, he looks like a tank. This guy seems like he's someone who's going to be able to protect Darnold. So this is where I see it with this pick. If Darnold can't make it with Penill Sewell protecting him, then he's not it. You can call him a bust, you can call him underachieving, whatever you want. I think he'll do better this year, but to give Sam the best chance is to protect. And again, they have some good weapons on offense. So I don't think getting a Jaylen Waddle necessarily is the thing. Devontae Smith, I don't think is graded that high anyways. But you look at all those things, I just think based on the entire complexion of the team, this is the best pick because you just have to go for the best at this spot, considering you're not in the business for a quarterback. You don't need to be a wide receiver. So you're either going defense or offensive line. And based on this, so you could take Micha Parsons, but I think offensive lineman just makes the most sense here. So you get the big guy at Oregon.
Okay, so you got Sewell out of Oregon at number 8.
Yep.
Falcons at number 9.
So again, like I said, Sewell's a big steal. This is a massive steal as well. The Atlanta Falcons, so I have the Falcons at number 9 taking Micha Parsons out of Penn State, linebacker. So he probably would be picked at 4. If in a world where they're not taking quarterback, the Falcons, I think, would take him at that spot, but they don't want to take him at that spot because it'd be a huge overdraft. Even though I think he's one of the best players on the board, it's a little high to be drafting a player at his position. So the reason Atlanta trades out is because they feel like they can still get him at 9. Because you look at Cincy, they're obviously going to go offense. Miami's going offense. Detroit's either going defense or quarterback, and then obviously Carolina. That's the only other team that you look. If you're the Falcons, say that they might take our guy, but they go offense because offensive line with Penill Sewell there, it just falls into the lap. And then you look at number 9, you go Micha Parsons. I think he will be defensive player of the year. I think he'll make an instant impact on defense.
Wow.
And yes, Atlanta does need to find a solution for Matt Ryan eventually, but he still can play. He's still putting up the numbers. He's still doing what he's supposed to do. It's the defense that's always letting him down. You bring up that Dallas game where they were up, I don't know, and they couldn't close the deal in a game where they were winning. And the reason they couldn't close the deal is because they couldn't stop anyone. They need to find a way to stop anyone. And as far as stopping someone, I think Micha Parsons is the way to go at number 9 with the Atlanta Falcons.
All right, number 10, everybody's favorite team to watch pick, the Cowboys.
So Skip Bayless is going to appreciate my pick here because he's been hoping and praying for this. I got the Dallas Cowboys taking Patrick Surtain, cornerback, Alabama. I think you think about Rashawn Slater, but I think Rashawn Slater is going to drop based on the positional needs of some of the other teams in this draft. So they get a shutdown corner. They lost a cornerback last year or 2 years ago, whatever it was. And they need someone, again, they don't need offense. They don't need Kyle Pitts. They don't need any of these offensive weapons. They're good enough with Dak Prescott and whoever he's throwing to. So because of that, you go defense, and I think their secondary gets torched on a regular basis. So you give him a shutdown corner there who his dad played and was a good player. So he's got it in his DNA, and he can go out there and play shutdown football for the Cowboys. And if they start stopping people, they could go on a deep run. So I think this is the first step of kind of solidifying their defense.
All right, the New York Football Giants.
The Giants, I have taking Jaylen Waddle. I think Jamar Chase is probably a little better, but it is a coin flip between those two. Again, if Daniel Jones is the shit or whatever, if he's your guy, you got to give him the weapons. You paid that Galladay from Detroit a lot of money. So, and then now you're going to add another weapon. So if Daniel Jones can't ball out this year, then he's not your guy. And the reason you make this pick is because this is the way of kind of telling whether Daniel Jones is capable of being this quarterback for the Giants, and so on and so forth. You get the best receiver at Alabama. Sorry, Devontae Smith. And I think this is really the only way you go here. If you look at the other prospects in this range, nothing else really makes that much sense. It's really a receiver, and I think drafting Devontae Smith at 11 would be hugely overreaction, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So it's just like one of those things where it's like, so I think Jaylen Waddle is the answer here with the Giants.
All right, so now we're going to go to one of the biggest disasters in the NFL, who just won the Super Bowl like 4 years ago. Another absolute disaster, the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, so I thought about wide receiver here. I thought about Devontae Smith, but I realized they have more issues than that. And it's kind of, you're at the point now where you're sitting at 11 or 12, and you have the best cornerback in the draft, or one of the best cornerbacks in the draft available to you. This really, I think this is kind of a cut and dry one. It's between Caleb Farley or CJ Horn from TCU, I think. So I think Farley from Virginia Tech is the better cornerback in this draft. I'd even argue he's probably a little, he's comparable to Surtain, who's been taken at 10. I did have Devontae Smith in my 2.0 take to the Philadelphia Eagles, and I don't believe in Jalen Hurts, but at the same time, you got to go for the best you got here, and I think Caleb Farley to the Eagles is the one. And it's, again, if Dallas takes a different corner, they'll just take whichever one Dallas doesn't take, and they have kind of the same kind of issue with there. So I have them at number 12, taking Caleb Farley, cornerback, Virginia Tech.
All right. The team that I'm most worried about, because I play in my division, who's absolutely on the rise, picking at number 13, the LA Chargers.
I'm going offensive line. I think I had them taking him last time as well, and the first time. So I've been very consistent with who I want, and who I think the Chargers should take. And it's Elijah Vere-Tuck, offensive lineman, USC. Big guy. You can put him in a different, multiple different schemes, and I think he can play both sides of you can say multiple tackle positions, et cetera, et cetera. I think you protect Justin Herbert. You allow him to continue to build on last year. And again, it is very tempting to take Devontae Smith there, but I just don't think you can do it. And I've looked at the tape, and he's just going to provide a lot for an LA Chargers team who wants to be competitive with your Chiefs.
All right, so number 14, and this is the one I've been so excited for. I have the biggest grin on my face. The 2021 Super Bowl champion Minnesota Vikings at 14. Who do they pick?
Okay, so the reason in my 2.0 I had them trading with Tennessee, and the reason I did that was because I looked at who I thought they were going to take, and I thought they could take them at 22. I'm not trading out in this spot, and I've completely, again, when I did it last time, I left a few important pieces off, and I had to move some stuff around, but I have them taking Kwity Paye, edge rusher from Michigan. I think this is like a prototypical Mike Zimmer type of draft pick, 14th pick. It's a little high, but I think Minnesota has the capacity on defense. They just need a little bit more upgrade. I don't see offense as a big issue. They got the second leading receiver in the NFL last year in Justin Jefferson. There's a lot of good things that they have there. Again, I don't love the quarterback, but you're not taking Kyle Trask at the 14th pick. So you look at a lot of this and you think of what you're going to do here, and it's basically between him and the edge from Miami. And Miami's edge is kind of, it would be an overdraft here, I think. And even though I am kind of overdrafting Kwity Paye, but I think he's got the stuff to help improve the defensive schemes in Minnesota.
All right, so big question. Is this Mike Zimmer's last leash? What does he have to do, in your opinion, to stay?
He has to make the playoffs. I think if you look at the division, Chicago quarterback is Andy Dalton. You know what I mean? You look at Detroit. Detroit's in a rebuilding phase, and then you have the Packers. The Packers are probably winning the division again as long as Rodgers is there. So this is your best chance to get a wild card spot. I think that there's one more game, but you can find a way to get the playoffs. If you don't make the playoffs, I think it's good night. So he has to hit on this pick. So whatever Mike Zimmer and Rick Spielman want to do, they have to be on the same page. They have to sort of be entwined with one another, and they have to hit this pick. They can't overdraft really, other than slightly. You can't. I wouldn't trade out. You 100% have to get this right. And I think, yes, you could go somewhere else. You could trade out. You could go but I think this is safe, because whatever happens with Kwity Paye, he won't bust. Will he be as good as he should be? Maybe not, but I don't think there's 0%. I think there's a low percentage that he's going to bust. So you have to go safe pick, that someone who can help your defense year one. And I do think he's going to help the defense year one. I don't know how explosive and how important he will be to that defense, but you just need to continue to do that. And Mike Zimmer just is a defensive guy. he's going to want to add another player to his defensive schemes.
All right, at 15, I've been waiting to see them pick.
Okay, so if I think they're going to try to trade up with in the top 5.
New England?
Yeah, I think they'll attempt to, but I think ultimately they'll get knocked back because I think Denver are in a little bit more desperate need, so they'll be willing to offer more than New England. And I don't know the details of what these trades are going to be, but that's just how I see it. You do have Cam Newton. He did not play well last year, but he did have 12 rushing touchdowns. I think they can make it work with Cam Newton. I expect him to be much better this season, but I think you need to upgrade. And from 1 to 2, from 2.0 to 3.0, this is my biggest jump. So I had him at 32 in my previous draft. He's going from 32 to 15. I relooked at the tape and I realized this is exactly the type of player that New England need. And I think from a personality standpoint, okay, so I gotta say the guy's name. Jarmar Owusu-Koramoah, linebacker from Notre Dame. He's got the discipline to handle Bill Belichick. He's got the ability. And I think as far as the New England Patriots go, if they don't go up, they should just sit here and take the best defensive player that would fit New England. So with New England, it's not about taking the best available necessarily. You have to draft a player that will fit what Bill Belichick is going to require from this player. And some of the guys here, with all due respect, don't have the personality to handle Bill Belichick. A guy that goes to Notre Dame that's gone to, dealing with that personality and the coach they have over there. I think this just kind of fits.
All right. Arizona at 16. Are they still trading down?
No, because in my first draft, I had the cornerbacks that they wanted all off the board. And then I forgot about J.C. Horn. So J.C. Horn is probably the third best cornerback in this draft. I don't think they're in a situation now where they need to trade out, but I've been consistent with Arizona, even in my first mock draft. All of them need, regardless of who it is, they need to take a cornerback. It would be a risk to take anybody else because I think I only have one more cornerback in this draft, in this first round, and I think J.C. Horn is the better one out of these options. They could go for the one from Northwestern, but I just don't think that makes a lot of sense in this scenario. And again, get some secondary help there, and I think Arizona's pick here, I think, is pretty clear. It's not clear who they're going to take, but I think it's pretty clear they will take a cornerback.
All right, the Raiders picking 17.
So last time I did this, I had a huge overdraft just to humor it with the Raiders. But now that I changed the picks with Minnesota taking Kwity Paye, I'm going to give the Raiders, who I had Minnesota taking last time, Gregory Rousseau from edge rusher from Miami. I know you want to protect Derek Carr, but I think John Gruden, I think, is just going to approach this a different way. And again, just because the Raiders make a lot of stupid decisions, I think they're just going to end up, and you'll see, they're going to end up taking who they should take Rashawn Slater, but I think John Gruden took the third best wide receiver in last year's draft at number 12. So, and he's quick, but he hasn't done anything else that provides the fact that he should be taken there with who they picked last year in the first round. So I expect the Raiders to go defense. And because of, how everything's going that way, I just don't think they're going to do the obvious thing. And that might be a little troll in the Raiders, but I have them taking the edge from Miami, which will be a good pick, but I think they could have gone a different direction.
All right, the Dolphins.
All right, here we go. He's talking about me trying to give Tua as much help as I possibly can. That's what I'm doing here with Miami. Devontae Smith, they're going to take 2 wide receivers in the first round because Tua has not impressed me. He doesn't look like he has the ability. He doesn't look like he has the personality. He looks kind of like a scattered child when he was playing for Miami. So if he's your guy and you take him with the 5th pick, you do have to, hand out you have to give him the best possible weapons he can. The dream is Kyle Pitts and a wide receiver, but Kyle Pitts is gone because of Cincinnati. So you take Jamar Chase and Devontae Smith. And the good thing about this, Devontae Smith has bust potential just because of his size. If he doesn't work out, you have the other one to lie on. one of these guys will hit, and that's the key here. And if they both hit, Brian Flores will have something special. And if Tua can't do it, but those two have good seasons, you can easily plug someone else in who may not be supremely talented to be able to do what they do. And again, next year's draft isn't great on quarterbacks, but they could get one of those quarterbacks in that system if Tua just flames out and can't deliver with the two wide receivers.
Sure. All right, Washington.
All right, Washington also is going to try to trade up to get Trey Lance, but ultimately going to close the door. And the Kansas City Chiefs are going to trade up with the Washington football team. And this is perfect because the Raiders' mistake is just going to become the Chiefs' treasure. I have the Kansas City Chiefs taking Rashawn Slater, offensive tackle from Northwestern. This might be the steal of the draft. I know I've said this 3 times, but in my 2.0, I had Kansas City taking so not Kansas City. I had him going in the top 10 to Dallas, but Dallas's cornerback need. And then you look down the list, the only other spot for him that I could have placed him is maybe the Raiders, maybe Miami. But again, I think Raiders are going defense, and I think Miami are just going to load up with offensive weapons. So KC are gonna come up there and grab probably arguably one of the top 2 offensive linemen in this draft.
Which is a boring pick, and I know Chiefs fans won't be hit. I mean, Chiefs fans are smart, so they'll be smart about it. But I'd rather make the most boring pick in the draft.
Yeah,
give them both protection after what we saw in the Super Bowl. Because, like, I think we're an offensive lineman away from winning another one.
Yeah, and then the funny thing about that is this sounds like a boring pick, but this is actually one of the biggest steals of the first round because he is, in terms of just if you just evaluate a prospect, he is a top 10, top 12 prospect, and you're getting him at 19. And again, the problem with Kansas City here is if they sit and wait, because Kansas City would love for him to fall at where are you guys drafting?
31.
31, right? So you look down, the Bears probably wouldn't take him. The Colts would take him. The Titans would take him. The Jets would take him. The Jags would take him. The Browns would take him. The Steelers would take him. The Ravens. So the problem is if you don't pull the trigger right here, right now, he's going to be gone before you fall at 31. So that's why I think Andy Reid is going to see him dropping and then see kind of the teams that are going to be next up. And there's going to be a lot of other teams that are going to they're probably going to draft him afterwards. So you have to make that decision in that moment. So I don't think Kansas City's mentality going into this is that they're going to trade up. But when he continues to fall, they're going to make that move because they don't have a choice. That's my perspective anyway. If he's going in the top, if he drops it to like 10 or 12, I think Kansas City still sits there because, as I said, there's good offensive linemen in the 2nd and 3rd round of this draft.
Yep.
So you don't need to do it. But with his value, it's all because of value, because he's dropping to 19. He's going to be right there for Kansas City or somebody else to go trade up. And I think we saw what the issues in the Super Bowl. You need to be protecting Patrick Mahomes. He can't be running for his life like Russell Wilson does every Sunday. But in the Super Bowl, that was the reason the score was a score, and you need someone to protect. And I don't think that Rashawn Slater is going to bust. I think he's got what it takes to at least be a valuable option for a contending team. And so Kansas City hits the jackpot, and so does Rashawn Slater, because the difference is he would have gone to a team under other circumstances. He would have gone to a team that's not even going to sniff the playoffs. And now he's going to a team that could potentially go to a Super Bowl.
All right. So number 20, the Chicago Bears, the worst one team in the NFL.
So
who accidentally made the playoffs.
Yeah, I thought about this. I thought about maybe taking Kyle Trask, who I have at the very bottom of this first round. But I just don't think it's not worth taking a B+ prospect quarterback at 20. If Mac Jones is there, they take Mac Jones. If anyone else falls other than Trevor Lawrence and Zac Wilson, because I think those are the 2 main ones, they'll take whoever's scrapped up. But you can't go quarterback here. Again, you just took a Rashawn Slater, so offensive lineman that could have helped them is an issue for them as well. Or it may not be a great issue, but that would have been a good pick for them. So they're going to go with another cornerback here, someone whose dad played for the Patriots. I'm going to go with Asante Samuel Jr. Florida State University cornerback. At this point, I think they need a defensive back. So it just depends on who they like the best. And I'm on this subject. I'm just making a judgment call based on, where they stand right now. Again, they could go Greg Newsome II from Northwestern, or they could maybe take the safety out of TCU. But I think cornerback is their game, and they're just going to pick whichever one they like the most. So as far as who they take, I don't know, but I think it will be someone who can help the secondary.
All right, number 21, the Colts. Very interesting pick.
Yeah. So you go. I think you have to. Carson Wentz is back in business. You have a good offensive line. You have a lot of good things going on there. I think you have to go. You don't have to, but I'd go wide receiver here. Rondale Moore, wide receiver, Purdue. I think outside of the big names, he's probably one of the more underrated receivers in this draft. I saw him play against Minnesota a couple times over the last couple of years. He's got the numbers stack up, the ability to stack up. The size is good. The intelligence is good. This would be again, it's a kind of a steal at where are we? 21. And he might slip out of the first round, but I think it's not I don't think it's a reach. I think this is a perfect slot for him, and Carson Wentz will get another weapon. They did draft Michael Pittman last year in the second round, but they got a lot of things going. The running game is pretty strong. They just have to, again, the quarterback situation, and I think Carson Wentz is going to really enjoy having Rondale Moore around.
Plus, he gets to stay home. The guy's from Indiana.
Yeah.
Plays at Purdue. I think it's a win-win all around.
Agreed.
And I'm not one of those people that likes to say draft and stay at home. I take talent, but if it's a talented player that can stay at home, it's a bonus.
Yeah, because drafting him here isn't a reach. It's kind of typically where it is. There's other receivers you could take, but I think it's when you're in the range of three receivers who are at close proximity, and you have a hometown guy, I understand why they would make that move. But I don't think they're going to make that move for that reason. I just think he's a little better than the other ones left. And again, give Carson Wentz the weapons you can, because we want to see him back in peak form again.
Yep. And I think Frank Reich's the guy to do it. That being said, the other team in their division, Tennessee Titans. The AFC South's going to be great. It's going to be an absolute slugfest.
Yeah. This one's difficult because there's like 4 or 5 different players that they could put here. But on this occasion, I went with Trevon Moehrig, safety from TCU. Again, the Bears might take him. Arizona might take him. But so it's basically like flipping with Chicago. Whoever the Bears take, the Titans will probably take who they leave on the board. So really at Tennessee, it's between him and the Northwestern corner. But I think, you just go for best value here. And I think at 22, that's a perfect spot for him. I think he'll be really good in that defense with Mike Vrabel as coach. And yes, he's an explosive player. He'll help him on defense. And I think that's kind of a perfect spot for him.
Nice. So the Jets have another first round pick.
Yeah, you go for quarterback, but you have to remember in the first round, or the early part of the first round, but you have to remember how many other issues that they have.
Yep.
You got a defensive coach now. I think you just go defense here. And I got them taking Jaylen Phillips, defensive end from UCLA, getting after the opposing quarterback. We all remember the Fail Mary situation. They basically tried to get him Trevor Lawrence or whatever. I don't remember the coach's name, but the defensive coordinator got fired after.
Yep.
But you have to give someone who's not going to do that regardless. And I think Jaylen Phillips is a strong personality, someone who can get after the quarterback and you're in a division that with Josh Allen now, you have to figure out a way to put him on the ground, because if you let him do what he wants, it's going to be difficult to win in a lot of games. I don't think they won a lot of games this year, but I think you have a good defensive player on one end, and then you have your quarterback of the future on the other. Those two mesh together, and hopefully the Jets can at least win a few more games.
Maybe 5. That's like
maybe 5, yeah.
All right, Pittsburgh, after an atrocious playoff loss, absolutely embarrassed themselves. They're picking at number 24.
All right, hold on a second. So Pittsburgh is at 24.
Yep.
All right, hold on. I just have my order a little wrong. But it doesn't change my pick at all. I just have to put it in order. All right. So the first I think that this is a toss-up. I think Tevin Jenkins' offensive attack from Oak State is possible, but their running game is bad. They just lost their running back from last year, and you just have to go running back here. Again, you can get, like I said, throughout this whole thing, you can get good offensive linemen in the second round. You don't need to spend a first-round pick on it. So I have Travis Etienne from Clemson, running back. Again, you just got to take your shot with the running back situation here, and just try to get the best one you can. And they don't need to necessarily take one here, but I think with a first round pick, it makes the most sense.
The Jaguars at pick 25.
Okay, so the Jaguars are taking. I'm going to keep it as I had it last time. I'm going to have Rashad Batman from the University of Minnesota. I think him and Trevor Lawrence could do some really nice things together. And the Jags also have other issues. There's a reason they only won one game.
Yeah.
And it was week 1. So I think you have to give them weapons. There's obviously other issues, but they can deal with that later. So I got Rashad Bateman from the University of Minnesota going to the Jacksonville Jaguars to team up with Trevor Lawrence.
All right, you got the Browns at 26, who just keep signing random free agents like Jadeveon Clowney. Look, I get he was an elite prospect, but some of their moves, it's starting to look like that Eagles dream team, remember? Where like they just kept putting more people on that were older, that had a good prime, but are older. So how are they going to make sure they don't fall?
Well,
like a one and
again,
done?
Clowney hasn't got after the quarterback very often in his career in Seattle, in Houston, and in Cleveland. Yes, it's a good pick. They're trying to load up on defense. In case that falters, they got to load up on defense. So I got him taking someone who does get after the quarterback, someone who can put the quarterback on the ground. Joseph Osaya, edge rusher from Texas. I think he'll bring that mentality. He'll bring that energy on a young Cleveland defense that doesn't have a lot of young pieces on it. It's a little older with obviously Myles Garrett and Clowney and some others. You just want to get a young guy who can get after the quarterback. Kind of the way they Denver did it with putting Von Miller alongside Bradley Chubb, or vice versa. In that draft, I think yes, Chubb was the 5th pick, but in this scenario, I think you just add a young piece on defense.
Yep. All right. So we're going down the list now, and at 27, we got the Baltimore Ravens.
I think it's simple. I think you add more offensive firepower to. It's a defensive team. You got a defensive coach. You got some weapons in the running game, but you could use another piece or two on in the wide receiver front. So I got them taking Kadarius Toney from a wide receiver from Florida. I'm not a big fan of Toney. In honesty, I think he's quite limited. But at the bottom of the first round, I think this is a good spot to grab him. Maybe John Harbaugh can, or whoever's going to be running the offense, figure out some ways where he can be more effective. But I think this is the best spot to grab him at number 27.
Right. So at number 28, the New Orleans Saints practically are going to name Jameis Winston starter. I actually like it because I think Sean Payton can get a lot out of him. But where do they go at 28?
So I thought about Kyle Trask here, but they have 2 quarterbacks. They just paid their backup quarterback a lot of money. So I'm just gonna go best available. Maybe not best available, but someone who could have gone a little higher. Like I mentioned, he could have gone to the Bears. He could have gone to Tennessee. Could have gone to Arizona even. I'm gonna go Greg Newsome, the 2nd cornerback out of Northwestern. And I think that's my final defensive back on the board here. And you're just going to try to do what you can to deal with the situation, and you just kind of work on the secondary. And, obviously the Saints are going to be a little different without Drew Brees. In the chance that the Saints offense is not prolific, they need to be able to stop people, get turnovers, interceptions, all that. And I think Greg Newsome, the 2nd, is going to be a good player to have in those situations where he can get some interceptions and all that.
All right. So we're down to the final 4 picks. Green Bay at 29.
For once, I think the Green Bay Packers are going to make not the sexy pick, but the right decision, and I think that's the big disconnect from last year. It was, obviously they took a quarterback. They would want to prepare themselves for the future. I don't mind that. The problem was they didn't take a wide receiver or an offensive player outside of in the first 5 rounds. They can't do that again. But again, there's a lot of wide receivers here that could you could benefit from later in the draft. But when Aaron Rodgers has time to throw the football, he can do anything he wants with it. Last year was an example of that, but you just want to beef that up at least for the future. And when Jordan Love eventually becomes a starter in a couple of years, he's going to want somebody, a veteran who can protect him. And so I'm going to go again, sexy pick. Packer fans may not like this pick at all, but I think Tevin Jenkins, offensive tackle, Oklahoma State, is probably the best you can go. You can go with this pick just because you want to prepare for them. A player that can help you now, but also will help you for the future.
All right, the Buffalo Bills, pick 30.
The Bills don't need a lot. They're pretty loaded. They're jamming to the Super Bowl, so I'm gonna have them pick Jamin Davis, linebacker from University of Kentucky. Again, you could take the kid from Washington, but it's really between those two. So Jamin Davis from a linebacker from Kentucky. I think he can help. He's very explosive, athletic. I think he fits perfectly what they do defensively, and I think Buffalo's loaded. They just need to add some pieces and getting a player at this part of the first round that can help you is I think very good, because a lot of times when people draft at the bottom of the first round, they're not someone who's going to be able to help you day one. And I think Davis is someone who maybe not be the starter right away, but could make some impact early.
All right, Washington, who traded with KC, they're picking at 31.
Yeah, you look at this, and yes, I think Joe Tyron makes sense because I think he's the best. You could even argue at 25 he was the best player left in the draft, in the first round at least. But the problem I have with Washington is they have Ryan Fitzpatrick, and then the who's the other kid?
Taylor Heineke.
Yeah, it's just not a great. And again, it's just not a lot of good options, and they're going to try to trade up for Trey Lance. I think they're going to get knocked back because I think that Detroit is going to draft him before they have a chance. I just think they're going to have to give up a lot to get up into where Trey Lance is going to be drafted, and that could mortgage your future. I mean, it'd be like destroying the next couple of drafts, especially with first round picks and all that. So I don't think they'll be able to do it. I think the Patriots and the Washington football team are both going to try to trade up. I just think they're going to be unsuccessful. And this might be a slight reach, but I only think just slight. So I think if I could land this guy, I think it would be one of the first picks of the second round. And maybe he gets drafted. But he was a Heisman candidate, so I'm gonna actually go Kyle Trask, quarterback, Florida. And that it might be a little high, and I'm hearing a lot of stuff that he could sneak into the bottom half of the first round. And I think I just like Trask a little bit more than Kellen Mond. I just think he's got capabilities. I don't think he'll be an all-pro, but with the quarterback carousel that you have in Washington, you at least need some stability. And I don't even think he'll be backup this year. So maybe you can say this is a waste of a first-round pick, but I think Ryan Fitzpatrick probably won't be back next year, and it will be between him and Heineke maybe for the next year to try and battle it out. But I think at this rate, you're getting, because the thing about this is they traded down, meaning they probably have at least your Kansas City second round pick. So they have an early pick in the second, not an early pick, but they have a decent pick in the second round, and there will probably be a few other ones sprinkled around. I don't think Kansas City's giving up the house to move up, but I think because you're moving up from 32 to 19. So
31 to 19, yeah.
It's not a massive amount that they'll have to give up to move, but I think Washington can get what they want in the second round because they'll have their own pick, and then they'll have your pick. So we'll have 2 second-round players. You can get 2 legitimate players, especially the top half to the bottom, to the middle of the second round, especially with theirs. So, and yes, you could make that same pick here, but Tampa Bay and has maybe they won't do it, but there's discussions that maybe they're taking a quarterback in the first round for the future, because Tom Brady's going to be around for a few more years. But so you look at everything that's happened in that situation. I think you just go for quarterback. I don't think it's the best pick here. It's kind of a silly pick, but I think it does make sense considering the quarterback options.
All right, finally, Tampa Bay at 32, the defending Super Bowl champions.
Yeah, this hurts me because he's really good and could have been drafted earlier if it wasn't for certain situations. Joe Tyron, edge rusher from Washington, another guy who can get after the quarterback. So they're going to have him. They're going to have Sue. They're going to have all those weapons on the defensive line, and they just got a whole lot better with a good pick at the very bottom of the first round of the draft.
All right, well, very good. Well, that's your predictions. Join us on Instagram Live. Elliot will put it in the description box below for Thursday. We're going to be reacting to the draft and see how many picks you get right, because last year I think you got like 12 right, like hit it right on the money.
Yeah, I had a few. I don't remember my total number. I'm willing to bet that I will be within range, even if I'm not a spot on of picks. But I bet there's going to be one, like, I bet it's going to be the Raiders or the Bears or something stupid.
They make a terrible pick.
They're going to make a really terrible pick. But honestly, I think Matt Jones at number 2 or number 3 would be a terrible pick too. So.
Sure. All right, my friend. Well, enjoy. By the way, Serie A, Premier League, La Liga, I beg of you, deduct points from all the teams that are trying to move and relegate them and see what it's really like without money. And that includes my own club or my former club, Arsenal. So please do that. Save football. See you next time.
Yeah, Bundesliga and French League forever.
Bundesliga forever. All right, peace.